a slovenly divorced bachelor takes in his neat-Nick poker buddy struggling with his own recent separation. But the new living arrangement brings its own problems. In the 1968 comedy, based on Neil Simon's Broadway play of the same name, The Odd Couple. And that's the movie we're dusting off this week on Movie Bones.
Broke up? Who? Felix and Frances, who? They broke up. The entire marriage is through.
You're kidding.
After 12 years?
They were such a happy couple.
He'll go to pieces. I know Felix. He's gonna go try something crazy.
She said he was going out to kill himself. He didn't want to do it at home because the kids were sleeping.
Why?
Why? Because Felix is a nut, that's why.
But is that what he said in those words? I'm gonna kill myself?
I don't know in what words, Vinny. She didn't read it to me.
You mean he left her a note?
No, he sent a telegram.
A suicide telegram? Who sends a suicide telegram?
Felix the nut, that's who. Can you imagine getting a thing like that? She even has to tip the kid a quarter.
You know, it's rare to find a movie that is like, you have the concept, which itself has got some natural interest to it. You know, you put a slob with a neat-Nick, right? The two people who embody that the best. And I don't know much about the TV show that followed it. I know you mentioned there's a sequel to this. I looked that up too. I don't think based on what I've seen, I'm going to be interested in seeing it. Maybe you can help me figure out if I'm right about that judgment or not. But these two guys, Walter Matthau and, Jack Lemmon, just kind of inhabit their roles. So it's like they were meant for these parts, really. It's like you have two people who's like hand fit in glove kind of moment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. These are two people that when you put them together and put them in the same film, like these two were meant to be. Like we talk about the word soulmates, and you don't have to. I don't think soulmates always has to be a romantic thing. So I'm not gonna go off in that territory. But these two were like soulmates in the world of film.
I mean, I'm trying to think of another pairing that isn't, like I said, not a romantic pairing, but it's just a couple of actors in a movie that just kind of fit so well together. I know that I'm missing something. It's such a pleasure, too, because it's like the lines that Neil Simon wrote, I presume that there was, I don't know how much improvisation they were allowed. It's like he wrote them for these guys. That's what it feels like. And Walter Matthau, especially, I think, of the two, Matthau, he just kind of, the way he delivers some of those punchlines, it's like, well, of course he said that. That's just Walter Matthau. And it's a beautiful thing. It's like, and it's such a wonder and such a joy to watch him act, because he's never really, you expect this thing to go off the rails, and it does. The way things go is off the rails with the neat-Nick and the slob, but it's like, he's a lot more patience than I was anticipating he would have going into it, which makes it more interesting, because it's like, yeah, it's irritating, and you expect him to be more grouchy, I guess, in a way. And he doesn't really get that way until later when it's almost like right to the point where it's at the end. But he's been very patient up to that point.
You want to know the most unrealistic thing about this movie?
What's that?
I can think of like situations where I can think of certain people out there and I'm like, I could see you in this particular situation. I could see this happening to you. I could see you reacting in such a way that, like you did. Like there's so much honest to goodness realism in this movie, that the only thing that is not realistic in this movie, and I don't care what era it's in, is that stinking apartment. It's basically a house.
Yeah.
It's like a 7-bedroom apartment. Or 7-room apartment, that is.
This is supposed to be New York, I think. It's definitely supposed to be New York, I think. And it's like, can you imagine what that would cost?
Yeah, this dude is a sports reporter.
Yeah. A sports reporter's budget buying this much. I know times do change, and cities have always been more expensive than non-cities or rural areas. And to think that a sports writer could have that much square footage in an apartment in New York City
while paying alimony.
Thank you for reminding me about that, because it's like that makes it extra. It's like, how has he not been kicked out in the street himself yet? Because it seems like that would be the natural consequence. If they were to make the apartment more realistically sized for his budget, it would make it that much more unbelievable that Oscar would be able to take Felix for as long as he does. It would be that much more unbelievable in the relationship aspect, I guess.
We recently just talked about this, our end of season episode.
Yeah.
one of the things that we have really pushed on and celebrated is dialogue. And oh my goodness, this particular movie is just so good with its particular dialogue that it's just the way they deliver their dialogue in this movie. I really did it made me want to rewatch the movie almost immediately, which I know that's kind of going into the territory of what's your rating for this movie at the end of this, but comedic timing is good. It's not just them saying their lines, it's how they deliver their lines with their body expressions and whatnot.
Now, all credit has to be given to Neil Simon for his script here. He's done a lot of like Broadway plays type stuff. Another play on Movie Bones, go figure, right? But
yeah.
And it's like, and you mentioned something about the phone, though, the use of the phone.
Yeah, I love how the phone is used in this particular movie. It replaces the characters of Walter Matthau's ex-wife and also Jack Lemmon's character's ex-wife as well. It replaces both of them. And the reason why I like that it does that, it doesn't push the focus on their relationships with their wives. Or the relationships with their ex-wives are the reason why they're in the positions that they are at this point in time in their lives, but it doesn't make it like, oh, we have to get back. No, it makes the story really does center on Jack and Walter's relationship with one another and how they are coping with their new realities. Of course, Walter Matthau's character has been in, he's already been divorced and everything. And so like he's already in that bachelor world, but Jack is coming into that bachelor world.
I love the fact that it has a lot to say about human relationships. It has to do with the loss of relationships, obviously, because you're dealing with divorce. But it also has to just deal with coming to terms with yourself and how you relate to other people. Because let's face it, Felix is a handful. I felt a lot more sympathy for Oscar than I did for Felix. From the very beginning when he's doing his smooth thing, it's like, and which, by the way, I finally, that's a joke they used in Rango too, if you've seen Rango. It's like, in hindsight,
I've not seen that movie, but
you haven't seen it? Yeah, you should go see that one. That's a good one.
No, I'm not seeing it right. Yeah.
It's like everything he does it's like I wouldn't feel comfortable sitting down in his presence. You'd be afraid to touch something. And for me, that if you were to like say they're both very grating on the nerves. They're both extremes. Well, they are, but I could live with Oscar in a way because if he gave me a room, like hey Oscar, I just need a room to bunk in for a while until I sort things out for a while. He'd be like, yeah, sure, take this room down there. I'd have my room. He'd have the rest of the house, and I would just ignore whatever he was doing most of the time, and he would ignore me what I was doing in my room pretty much. And he's that kind of guy, whereas Felix, he can't keep to himself. And that's a problem.
I agree that I think everybody would probably be ultimately better off with Oscar. If you didn't make any waves in that house, he might forget that you live there.
He's like, ideally, is like, you could enter witness relocation program in that house,
Obviously, his biggest issue is that he's a complete and total slob.
Oh, yeah.
We are underplaying the word slob here, or downplaying it a little bit. No, like at the beginning of the movie, they're like, dude, you're so bad off that like,
the sandwiches.
Your food is moldy.
The sandwiches.
You didn't have anything. The refrigerator was clearly something wrong with it. It was, moldy sandwiches that he was making for them. The beer was like warm as all get out. Jack's character, who is, again, the complete opposite of that. And you're just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know.
Like, and he does things. You're absolutely right. He does things that are just like, oh man. Like, I hate to say it, but you are sitting there going midway through the movie. No wonder she dumped you, dude.
It's like, no, it's like, I can't entirely blame her for being that stressed out that she feels like she has to leave. I never encourage divorce for any couple that's not like abusive, but it's like, I still like, I said, you know what, maybe if we were to like, try and work on this, you need to work on this part of your life, dude, because honest to Pete, man. And he does learn something about, easing up, just like Oscar learns a little something too. But I have to say that the centerpiece of the film for me, I think, is the lead up to and the actual execution of the date. And for me, that's like the kind of, because I could imagine all kinds of ways the scene could play out. And it's going to be a disaster. But the way it plays out is kind of unexpected. Felix, of course, he starts out as very kind of, uptight, and he doesn't know what to say. But as the ice slowly starts to melt in a very funny way, Oscar apparently is making the world's longest to make martinis in the world. That scene is like, what are you doing in there, man? I've never felt like a drink took so long to make than this scene is making it feel like. Felix is left with these two women, and it's like he's just kind of completely flummoxed for a while. And then finally, when they start to open up, it's like it becomes this gushing kind of pour out of emotion from his past relationship with his wife. And it's like, you're supposed to be here dating these women and they're having commiserating with you over your past failed marriage. It kind of draws a line for Felix in a little bit to think about some things about his own life. It's the centerpiece of the film. It's not a long movie, but but the scene itself, that was the highlight for me.
The highlight for me is kind of the climax of the film.
Yeah,
It's just like, that's the part where I just start going back and I start watching or wanting to watch that same scene. But like, they're both at their breaking point. Felix, once again, he's like, I'm just going to kill myself. And Oscar's like, wait a minute, you're not putting that on me. But one of my favorite lines in this movie is when, after Felix says, I don't think, like, he just kind of responds in a way that does not actually seem like he's listened to him at all, or he's just ignoring him. And Oscar says, why doesn't he hear me? I know I'm talking. I recognize my voice.
There's some of Oscar's, kind of the way he is and humor-wise. I think that reminds me of you a little bit. The kind of, you're very practical. And so that strikes me as a very kind of Ryan line. And so I can see why you like it so much. It's a great line, too. It's terrific.
There is a sequel in the future, and I am willing to talk about that. I've not seen the sequel, but I know enough about the sequel.
Before I will be tapping your brain for that. But before we get to that, I wanted to say that I do like that the solution for both men is proportional to the problems that we've been talking about. Felix has the unenviable greater part of the burden, and he's got the bigger obstacle to overcome. Oscar just needs to be a little neater. And he does get a little bit, gets a little more, just a little bit more fussy because he needs to take better care of himself. It's a physical need. It's not like a deep spiritual connection or something like for him. I don't know what that would even look like for him. But for him, improvement just means, just caring a little bit more about his environment. Okay, that's fine. But as for carrying the movie, it's really Felix's problems that need the attention. And the script does give him that. It's like it gives him that sense of assurance. Mm-hmm. It gives him that sense that, he's been avoiding everything he does. He's got He's got a switch inside of himself. It means I am worthless and I am doomed and I'm worthless and I'm going to cast myself off this world. That's one switch. The other one is, well, I'm going to blame everything on the nearest person available to me. It's like all these problems and you're having it. And it's like, that's the switch. And he has to find the middle ground. It's like, no, I am responsible for my own problems, but I don't have to kill myself for it. I don't have to negate my own existence for it. I still have value. And I can balance that out. I can still find the middle ground because it's true that he has both value as a human being, and he's also flawed and he has things he has to work on. The script doesn't actually come out and just tell you that, but it lets you find stuff out like that. I'm sure if someone else would have a different way to describe what I just said, but if someone was listening to me who's also seen the movie, they'd understand it and say, yeah, that's pretty much what I would have said too in different words. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's got really this really subtle thing going on. I like that too. But go ahead but that's what I want to say about that. But the sequel, you've done some research.
Well, see, I have not watched the sequel, and I could probably watch the sequel. Like, I don't think I would hate the sequel. But here's the difference between this movie right here and the sequel to this movie. And that is in the time period that it's set in. And I'm not talking about, I'm saying when the movie was shot.
Yeah.
Because you are in a different world of filming then. Now, we've seen movies that have more slapstick elements to it, like, it's a mad, 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 mad world. And I'm not taking anything away from that, or that time period when it had that stuff. But this has more of, like, that kind of element to it in the sequel. So the sequel is about their kids. And it turns out their kids are getting married. Oscar's son and Jack's daughter, or Felix's daughter. They're about to get married. They're both invited to the wedding. It becomes like a buddy comedy type of road trip as they try to make it to the wedding. Shenanigans are afoot the whole entire time. And I'm not saying that takes away from the spirit of the original film, but what the original film was, which is it's about like an interpersonal or a personal relationship between two men in their friendship and all that stuff. This is more, I'm going to say it, where they kind of left off amicably in the movie, like for whatever reason, I don't know if the other film explains it, but they're back to annoying each other, or they have annoyed each other, but they're not enemies. I want to make that very clear. They're not enemies like that. They just haven't seen each other in forever because Oscar has moved to Florida. I think it's Florida. And, I think Felix, he stayed in New York. And so, like, they just haven't seen each other in forever. So, like, and it's like, it's back to the kind of the way that they're both are, that kind of thing. And it just intertwines that with more of the physical comedy, the slapstick stuff, like the shenanigans that late 90s movies, early 2000s movies, comedies do. Think of, like, why Adam Sandler's movies were so big back in that time period.
Yeah.
That kind of shenanigans. I'm not saying, like, you have that kind of character work. I am saying, like, the kind of, like, physical comedy that you would see is a part of that.
Maybe there was some pressure by the studio to, like, to get with the more kind of pattern your movie based on the trends of the time kind of a thing. And I'm guessing, I haven't seen them film, and I'm probably not going to see it. As some people have noted, it's like, it's one of the greatest gaps between the first and second installment. It's like, this was filmed in 1998. And we're talking about a film that was, the film that we're doing today was made in 1968. So 30 years is not an insubstantial amount of time. A lot changes in 30 years. And that on top of the fact that you're adding those kind of more comedic elements that it's like, there's plenty of funny in the original. Like, it starts with Felix's suicide attempt. That's pretty heavy stuff for comedy. It's still a comedy, but it's not, it's like you said, it's not like slapstick kind of. I could see how the sequel would be more like negatively reviewed. There was also a TV show too with Tony Randall and Jack Klugman. It went for 5 seasons.
When did that come out? Like, didn't it come out?
I'm looking at it
in
now.
the 80s?
It's 5 seasons from September 24th, 1970 to March 7th, 1975. So, like, but it was very close to the original, apparently, in that sense.
I'll say this, like, recently when we did some ratings for our movies for our season 2 ending, or season 2 special, and, like, I had talked about in there, but I was saying, like, because it's a comedy, like, it's a little bit lower on my list for, like, these particular reasons. I would recant that with this particular movie. I would actually put this high up the top of my list because of the character work in this movie and the dialogue in this movie. It is just phenomenal dialogue. It will make you laugh hard. It will make you, and like I said, it made me sit there and be like, I'm going to go watch some of these scenes again because I just liked them that much. So if you can't figure out, people, right now, this is a Fortune and Glory. Go watch it. You might like it enough to where I think there's been only a handful of movies. One would be strange if I told you what it was. But there's been like a couple movies out there in my life that I almost sit there and go, you know what? I'm going to watch that one more time. And this is one of those movies that, like, I was about to be like, you know what? I'm going to watch this one more time.
Those kind of movies come fewer and farther between. I remember as a kid, I used to say, well, there were Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and I would watch them almost on a loop, So I get what you're saying. And as an adult, it's like, I don't watch those films on a loop anymore. In fact, I'd probably get very tired if I did. But it's good to hear that, that you still have that going for you. Now, as for me, comedies are, I guess I have to compare it to, like, what is my 5-star kind of movie, on Movie Bones. It's like, and that goes to The Lady Killers for me. That's like the example par excellence of a Fortune and Glory comedy for me. It is, I can't think of a single flaw of, like, it also doesn't quite reach the highs, I guess. Lady Killers for me gives me that sense of rewatchability I think you have with this movie. But that said, I am, like, really close to you on this. So I am, like, in between Trust Me and Fortune and Glory. I am 4.5 out of 5 on this. This is very close to Fortune and Glory for me. It's really good. And I could watch it many more times and not be bored at all. And it's a feel-good movie too. And as far as that goes, it is very highly rated. So that's our review for The Odd Couple. At this time, we'd like to remind our listeners out there that if you're having a good time with Ryan and me, dusting off these old movies in search of celluloid treasure, please do like and subscribe, comment, and of course, follow us on your podcast purveyor of choice. Tell us what you think we got wrong, because we're human beings, and clue us in on a few titles you'd like us to see cover on future episodes. But on the subject of future episodes, I didn't get a chance to update the file on this, but you know what movie we're watching next week, Ryan. So why don't you tell them what we're in for?
Dude, this is what Tubi says. Men, women, and apes. Oh boy. Men, women, and apes live as separate tribes on the tropical island of Wongo. When the apes discover the women, they plan a raid to capture mates. Guys, I just don't know.
And you know what? I'm going to tell you right
Um,
now, Tubi's a little off on this. It's not, as far as the movie goes, I've seen this one before. Ryan hasn't. And it's like the island, as far as I'm concerned, it was never referred to as Wongo. It's just the tribe of Wongo. So so Tubi's a little bit off on that. And on the subject of apes, we're going to talk a lot about the apes part, I think, next week, because quite frankly, you'll find out. You'll find out. We'll hold
okay.
that as a teaser.
This stars. I'm not going to go down the whole list here. This stars Gene Hackshaw, who that sounds like a familiar name. Probably not, but it just sounds like one. Mary Ann Webb, Conde Gerard, and this is directed by James L. Walcott, who that also sounds like a familiar name. This
It
is The
does.
Wild Women of Wongo. Very few people that are a part of this movie, including the director, have Wikipedia pages.
That's always a good sign.
Always a great sign. And there's someone in here. It's not the character's name. They're just one of the actresses. There's an actress in here, Adrienne Barbeau, and it says not to be confused with Adrienne Barbeau,
Yeah, that's
who
the
is
one.
someone else.
Yeah. What's funny, it's like, I just have to see something here real quick. There's another movie that doesn't it has a whole cast and a director with no Wikipedia pages. And if you're familiar with Mystery Science Theater, you might guess what it is. I mean, maybe there's others, but it's Manos: The Hands of Fate, which is a movie that was made on a dare, basically on a bet. Yeah, I hesitate to use that one for Movie Bones because it's so well known because of Mystery Science Theater. But have you seen Manos at all?
I have no idea.
Oh,
I used to work with a guy who would watch some of this stuff online, and not online. He would watch some of this stuff, and so like, there's a chance that I have seen it before, but I have no idea.
in some ways, it's more out there than anything we've seen before. If we did do it, like I said, I've been hesitant because Mystery Science Theater has popularized it so much that, well, then again, we've done Plan 9 too, so we'll talk it over. Maybe we'll end up doing it at some point. I can't think of anything else to say, Ryan, so unless you got something else, I'm going to hit the stop button. What do you think?
I'm good.
All right, well, we'll see you guys next week, and Ryan, I'll see you next week. All right, man?
See you next week.
All right, bye-bye, folks.
Now it's garbage.